Welcome to 9 Times. I'm Garrett, and I'm in the process of creating my own world. So for this video, it's kind of a part 2 from last video, where I explored this character who is a master gem worker, meaning he carves and molds gems. Now, the gems in this world are not exactly like the gems on Earth. There are some that are kind of like that, like these coins for example, pretty similar to our rubies and sapphires, emeralds, and so on. Now, while this world has many regions to it, there is one unifying currency that is used. And much like real-world currencies, they have various markings to determine whether or not they are official. I like the idea of, instead of them putting their coins into leather sacks or something like that, I thought it would be cool if they had their rings almost like a keychain, or almost like a key ring, except larger. So you could have basically your wallet dangling out of your hip, which now that I say that out loud, I don't know why you would do that, but just the idea of having your wallet kind of be this thing that just holds the rings as if they're rings. You know, maybe you wouldn't be able to slip it in your pocket as well. Although this one where they stack on top of each other over here would kind of be able to fit in your pocket, maybe, depending on how big these turn out to be. But then again, you can't exactly put a sack of coins in your pocket either. Weapons aren't going to be that great of a use, except with knives and daggers, and maybe little ends to certain weapons and so on. By no means are these going to be made into swords and axes or things like that. They'd be much too brittle and prone to breaking. But if you need a little bit of an edge to, slide between somebody's ribs, that'll work too. In many cases, you would probably prefer a metal knife over these, but hey, I think they look pretty cool. If these were a real thing, I would carry some of these around, even if they weren't as durable as a steel knife. With armor, you wouldn't be able to make very large sections of armor made out of gems. You would usually have to make these discs or plates or shards and lay them over each other, just for minimal protection over certain areas. And so you could have a plated vest, but it would have to have some gaps, or it could just be laid over each other like the tiles on a roof, but just not huge pieces, because these would have what I would call shatter points, which, if struck in the right place, the pieces would shatter. But if you have a bunch of smaller pieces, that's less likely to happen. Another use, like I said, is storing energy in one of two forms. Either these small little pebble-sized chunks, where you could have each of them have a little bit of energy, like a battery, or these bigger things where it's in the liquid form, storing energy. Maybe later I'll call them a different name than gems, because gems can't traditionally do this, at least not what we think of as gems. I think having these be a decent part of the world, at least more centralized areas, and the areas that cooperate in trade and can be used with signaling and other things, or hydraulics and energy transferring in machines. Another thing that I didn't mention before is lighting. So I like the idea of certain veins of these lighting up when struck. Let's say it's got a spike on the end of this thing on top. It could be spring-loaded. And let's say you pull it back, let it go, and the effect lights up the gem or crystal for some amount of time before you have to go and pull it back and strike it again. Originally, I was just going to have the coins be gems, but I've been just brainstorming and seeing what other uses I could come up with. Because I think it adds a little bit of a flair to the world, a little bit of color here and there, as opposed to just having, boring silver and gold everywhere. And if gems are as commonplace as all this stuff and the color of gems, again, just more color and a little more exciting looking. Now, I'm not saying everywhere will be all bright and vivid like this, but it'll be a nice accent color, whichever color is being used at least. These aren't all just like earth gems or earth crystals. These are various kinds of materials that kind of fit roughly into the category. So imagine a ruby being melted into liquid and being used as a conduit for energy of some kind. And so various lights and signals and, as I said, Morse code and other things, where it's not exactly electricity, but more so maybe the energy of the impact being able to pass through this liquid form. And there we have it. All the different uses I can think of for now. I'll work out the kinks with how this stuff works, especially with the energy and how it's kind of acts like electricity, but not really. And is it kinetic? Is it something else? We'll figure it out. I'll iron out the kinks. I don't know how it works. Not yet, at least. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you later.